Hey everybody, so just a quick note about this episode. We originally recorded this live on Twitch, and at the time, the Hugo Awards had not happened. Well, they have obviously happened by the time of this release. That's my fault, that's nobody else's fault. I'm just exhausted and a lot is going on. And so we're behind. But some of the stuff we talk about here, I think is still relevant and interesting, even if we now know the results to some of the stuff that we do discuss. So I just want you to keep that in mind, and hopefully the ideas and thoughts we share will still be interesting and compelling, and we would love to hear from folks if they want to sort of take this to the next level and offer their thoughts about how the Hugo Awards ultimately went, who won, and so on. We'd love to hear from that. Naturally, the writing strike, which is another thing we do talk about here, is sort of kind of semi-over, although SAG-AFTRA is still, as of me talking now, I believe still in a strike mode, so keep that all in mind, and please have them all in your thoughts, because we would love them to be successful. So if you are interested in our Twitch channel, just a note that we are also moving it over to my channel, the Alphabet Streams channel, mostly for practical reasons. There's an episode coming up where we talk about that a little bit, but the short version is I'm affiliate on Twitch. Skiffy is not and will never be, based on how often we release Skiffy episodes on Twitch. So it just makes more sense both for me to manage only one Twitch channel and also get the benefits of affiliate, just to kind of merge them all, because it's just better for scheduling and all of that, and we just get more out of it. And honestly, it's probably easier for you to not have to hear 97 different Twitch channels every time we tell you where to find us. So there you go. Look, I appreciate everybody giving us your time. I appreciate your thoughts. Please message us. Again, we have a listener suggestions form, skiffyandfandy.com/listener suggestions. Anyway, on to the episode. Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanny Show's new live show. It's not really new anymore, but it's still technically new. SNF Clacks.
Striking blows and throwing blocks for unions, books, and more.
Sure, I'm Sean.
I'm Paul.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Trish.
We have a lot more people than we originally had planned, which is very interesting. People just show
You went
up.
to 2 to 4.
So on today's show, we are going to discuss Hugo Award nominees, the strikes, Simon's Schuster, which is the name I've given to a situation that has recently happened, and possibly other topics. There's a social media topic that'll probably come up as well, and then anything our live audience happens to bring up, because audience participation is always welcome. So there's that.
Participation is not mandatory?
Yes, it is mandatory.
Please share your comments with us about this and past episodes at skiffyandfanty.com/listeners. Listener suggestions. Some of these questions might get discussed right here on SF Clacks or a Speculative Dispatch show, so get those questions in, listeners, now!
Yes. Well, in any case, so we have 4 topics that have come up. I suppose we should begin with a happy topic. Should we talk about a happy
topic? There was a happy topic?
Yeah, the Hugo Award nominees. That's a happy
The Hugo Award nominations.
Yeah. A lot of people got picked. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised. Well, I was surprised based on where this is and who the majority of the voters are. Not so surprised by the names we actually saw.
Surprised by a couple of omissions. I really expected to see Babel there, and although there is a quite possible reason that it's not on the list of best novels, I don't believe that's been confirmed publicly.
It is not.
And I also was hoping to see The Mountain and the Sea by Ray Naylor on the list of best novels.
I've heard very good things about it.
I would second that.
It's great. The other books are good too, but that would have been my top pick, actually.
For all that I read, I've not read any of them, I don't think, that have made
the list?
Nomination. That made the list. No, for novel or novella.
3, 4. I've read 5 of the best novel, and I've read another in a series of the one that I didn't read and don't feel like picking this one up.
Well, I will tell you, I've read only one of the best novel. One of them I will never read, and one of them I'd never heard of, and one of them I know the author, but I didn't know they had a novel out. So there's that.
Wow.
So,
There's just so much out there.
yeah.
There's a lot out there. I've read half of these. I would like to read the others in my copious free time. Trademark.
I've read half of the novellas, and I would be happy with really any of them, but 2 in particular would make me happy.
I've heard in audio, air quotes, 2 of the novellas and read but by not by the traditional audiobook route. And I've read a third. I've not read the other 3.
I've read 3 of them. One of them I'll never read, and the other I feel
Never
like
is such a strong word. Sean.
there are certain authors whose work I will just not read because either
I wasn't prying as to who it was. It just seemed
I won't
very.
be saying that.
It
live
seems
on-
like
No,
yeah, I didn't think so. It seems like a very
No. It's
very
nothing
strong.
against the well. In some cases, it's against the person. Although neither of these instances, no, never mind. One of the instances is because of the person. But the other one is not because I dislike the person. I just their work isn't it's not my jam. So yeah. But there's that. But like, it's nice to see Adrian Tchaikovsky on there. Niveau is really great to see her. See a poke, which is wonderful. Alex Hero has obviously been on a Hugo ballot before. This is the one I had not read.
Oh, that's the only one I have read, actually.
Wow.
Now that I look at it more closely.
I will not name Rainbow Worry because I'm trying to be happy and nice. And I don't need to cause controversy for the sake... I'm too tired for controversy. I'm old, guys. I'm old.
Yeah, if we want to fill time, we can talk about the books that we love, or short stories, or whatever that we love from this list.
Well, from the list...
There's no need to spend time tearing stuff down.
That's true. I will say that some of the shorter work I was kind of... nothing I think I nominated made the longer length materials. Maybe I'd have to check the Lodestar, which is not a Hugo. Whatever, it's a Hugo. Shut up. But like Noveletta, was really glad that John Chu's "If You Find Yourself Speaking to God, Address God with the Informal You." I was really pleased to see that there.
Yep. That was a good one.
That's a really good one. And then I know in short story, literally none of those were on my list, but there were a bunch of Chinese authors there, which was really interesting. That the more of them made it there than made elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, well, as you get away from the novels, you get more Chinese works in the ballad, I've noticed.
Right. Is
but
that also a reflection of where Worldcon is? Does that ever play into?
Well, yeah, I would think so. You have to... You don't have to have a Chengdu membership to vote, but it helps. If you otherwise have to have been a member of the last Worldcon. I think if you're a member of Glasgow, you could also nominate, but I might be wrong about that. But yeah, so a lot of people, I guess, from China are going to this con, and thus will have voting membership, and will have had nomination status also.
I did nominate... I did like DIY by John Wiswell. He's a longtime friend of mine, so I like his work. He has a unique voice in science fiction that I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. I have not read any of the others.
I have listened to Rabbit Test from the Uncanny Magazine podcast, and I thought it was good. It was chilling. It took the format of a pamphlet advising people how to get around regulations if they find themselves pregnant. It's a story about abortion. So yeah, I thought that was well crafted and interesting and scary. So good on it. I have not read and I've listened or read I read DIY, and I have not encountered the others. So I'm still on the fence. I about whether to get a membership in this con because of political reasons, obviously. So I'm not sure yet whether I'm going to be getting that or getting a member's packet. So right now I'm just, from the perspective of stuff I have happened to read this year so far.
My interest in this topic also is more general In so a little background, I've never been to a Worldcon. I've never done anything in this realm of sci-fi fandom, and it's still kind of a mystery to me, a black box. But when I look at this list, I absolutely adore Tor, and I really love the people that work for Tor. But there's so much more out there than Tor.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a huge dominance, and I don't know if that's just because of the inherently awards are based on reach, not necessarily on quality alone, at least. And it has this always been the case, or it just seems particularly striking to me this year, and it's so hard for small publishers and such to get works noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Are there even awards out there that specifically try to target them or boost them? Or,
I mean, some of the regional cons and regional awards do boost smaller publishers, but when it comes to the Nebulas and the Hugos, sadly, Tor is the 2,800 pound gorilla in the room, and especially when it comes to novellas, because there are a few non-Tor novellas out there every year, but they kind of have cornered the market. But I noticed this year that even in novels, one of these 5 is not Tor, and that's Del Rey, and Del Rey's a big one, so it's like, yeah.
There has been a shift. So, Rainbow Warrior is correct that Tor in general just have more resources to market. Keep in mind that some of the books that are on this, we don't know exactly how the bigger length works were selected in terms of the voter base. We'd have to look at the numbers to really have a sense. But, like, my guess here is that Tor also has a fairly decent reach in China, which may be also affecting these numbers than some of the other publishers. DAW, for example, has been actually struggling at the moment. I know some people who write for DAW and have not been terribly satisfied with their publishing experience, which is not necessarily their editor's fault. It's more of the sort of management of the publisher. And frankly, Tor is just, it's really the actual big boy in town. And that presents problems because there's lots of SF that is being written by someone other than Tor, even in the novel length stuff. But it's not getting it's one of two things is going on. It's either not getting the attention within the fandom that would be broadly within this realm of interest, or it's just really not hitting the hardcore voter in the same way. Because we've seen Tor dominance before in previous ballots. And usually it's novella because they're just the big boy for the novella. They're the largest publisher of novellas at this stage, which is both good and bad. But there may
they
also
have
be
so many on Tor.com.
Yeah, they have so many. And another factor is just if this is only hitting a fairly insular readership who are primarily Hugo voters, the type of person who buys memberships and votes, that says a lot about the membership. I mean, it's worth noting that even though this is a popularity award, the votership for Hugos is pathetically small. Really, really pathetically small.
The number of voters you need for a nomination is low. We saw that in Full Flower back in the days of the puppies.
Yeah, so Rainbow Warrior is noting about 2,000. It usually depends on the Worldcon, but yeah, more or less somewhere in the territory of 2,000. As a counterpoint to this, I was looking at Goodreads. I was trying to pull up the numbers again, but like the Goodreads numbers make Hugo Awards seem basically irrelevant. The difference is that every single one of those voters in the Hugos has paid $50 more or less in order to be able to vote. Whereas with Goodreads, you just have to have a Goodreads account, which is a little bit different. But it's essentially dwarfed. Which means that I think, Paul, you're correct. You're raising a really good point. It doesn't take that many people interested in one very particular thing to push that over, which is why we got the slate voting, how easily it was to game this award, because it's just not grown substantially. So yeah, so that's a factor here with Tor. Tor does great work, but it would really be nice.
Are they good enough to be 11 out of the 12 novel/novella nominees? That's a harder lift to to suggest that that's really the case of the field, that they're that good. But that's what the voting says, but I don't think it's reflective of reality.
I think we should have generally abandoned the idea that the Hugos are actually a true reflection of what's best. It's really a reflection of what a very specific small votership thinks is best.
I mean, honestly, that's true with almost any award, like the Oscars, for instance, or whatever.
I think that the difference is that at least for something like the Goodreads Choice Award, which is a populist award, it can at least boast to have a reasonable percentage of actual readers.
A large number, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say the Hugos aren't important or anything. It's a fairly narrowly specific award, though, that has a very powerful history. Yeah, it's, there is that. It's one of the handful of awards, though, that does have fan-oriented categories alongside professional categories, though.
Yes, and I will happily note, because it brings me joy, that one of the nominees for Best Fanzine is Nerds of a Feather, which I am an editor
Oh yes,
for.
congratulations!
So I am a Hugo nominee once again.
It's like number 400.
But especially when you get to, what's that? No, it's not number 400. Be nice.
Can you make a shirt yet out of your pins?
No, I cannot make a shirt out of my pin. I am not Steven Silver, Sean.
Are you
I'm
working
not
towards
Mike
it, though?
Lyer, Sean. What?
You should work towards it, though. I feel like that's a good goal.
No. It's an honor to be nominated. I didn't expect to be nominated this year. I figured, and I wasn't nominated in Best Fan Writer, so I figured, because especially when you get to these fan awards, we have a lot more representation from China. Best Fan Writer, three of them are from China. For Best Fanzine, it looks like at least one of them is. So, or two of them are. So.
Yeah, this is one of those areas where a fairly small number can have a very significant impact because they're relatively low-voted awards.
Right. I mean.
There's your name, Paul. Yeah.
There is my
Paul
name
on this ballot? Let's see if we can find Paul. Where is Paul?
He is down there.
Paul.
I had noticed Nerds of a Feather, but I didn't see that your name was there too.
So best fanzine.
Nerds of a Feather, Rosanna Pendlebury, Arturo Serrano.
I see one. Nerds of a Feather. Rosanna Pendlebury, that's not Paul. Arturo Serrano, that's not Paul. Paul Weimer. Do I know a Paul Weimer?
No, you don't.
I feel like we know. Don't we know someone named Paul Weimer?
I see a Paul.
Trish, we know
Pius
someone, right? That's named Paul Weimer. Right? Isn't you know Paul a little bit?
I do.
Okay. I don't know about you, Daniel, but you've heard Paul Weimer before, right?
I believe so.
I mean, he's been on the ballot like 500 times, hasn't he?
500? No, it has not been 500 times.
Five other times, not 500. Calm down.
Yes,
but he is ubiquitous on the internet.
At least so he claims. Well, that is actually true.
No,
is another matter entirely.
But in seriousness, congratulations, Paul. I'm very happy to see your name on the ballot again. It's nice. It also gives me lots of evidence for every time you're like, I'm not that important. I'm like, fuck off. You have more Hugo noms than I do. You definitely are. You've even been nominated as Best Fan Writer before.
I've been fan writer 3 times, podcast twice for Skiffing and Fanny.
No, you've been on for every single one of ours, so there's 4. So that's 6 now. How many times for Nerds of a Feather?
ISFDB disagrees with you.
Their database is inaccurate. So
well, that's what I'm going by. Anyway, moving along.
I was happy to see Best Semi-Prozine had Faya nominated. I don't know if they've been nominated before, but I do really enjoyed Faya.
Yes, last year.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in that category. I will just say it would be really lovely if certain people who win lots of awards and categories, maybe after a while you just don't win for a little bit.
I'll go ahead and say it, especially if you're a pro, maybe recuse yourselves from the fan categories.
Oh, well, I wasn't thinking that specifically, but you're not wrong, Trish.
And I am the opinion that if you win, you could give somebody else a chance. It's like recuse yourself. Because yes, it's nice that there is a certain Hugo winner. I'm not going to mention names that they've basically piled up Hugo wins and they just keep getting nominated and keep winning. And
I have a solution.
what's that?
So one of the things that the Hugos really, like, they do them, but they're like buried. Like sometimes they do little fan like awards to honor people who've been in fandom since like 1912, and things like that, just to kind of honor people. It'd be really nice if what they'd also do is like service to the genre. And like if you get one of these awards, you can't be nominated for anything that year because this is your award. It's like a Grandmaster award essentially. And there are some people who've, gotten nominated, won many times, who I just think like this should be like a little like, look, obviously you're really good and we love you. Here's a magic gold plaque with your name on it that says service to the genre award, and like, do some like little events to kind of honor that person. So sort of like a Grandmaster award, but it's like fans giving that specifically to the
lifetime achievement.
Basically like a lifetime achievement. I was trying not to say lifetime achievement because some of these people still got a long time. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
They can still get it early on. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. They could even get 2.
But I mean,
Two
this is
enough for 2 lifetimes.
I mean, this is not a new problem. I mean, consider for the years in a row that a certain blog / magazine with a 3-digit number in its title just won year after year after year. So it's not a new problem.
Is that Manila Folder 554?
Correct. You got it. You got it. You got it. So So it's like it's not a new problem that just like. I mean, it's not even a matter. I think it's a matter of imagination of the nominees. It's just like it's a bit of log rolling, and a bit of like, oh, that's a familiar name. I'll just nominate them again, and they'll just win again, on and on and on all the way down. So it goes.
But
so
it
goes.
But
so it goes.
At the same time, they're obviously people are being nominated again and again. They're not. It's not like there's no like slate here. There's no. Pretty much nobody on this list like campaigned for themselves, so they're being nominated by fans, which is a thing we have to consider too. That fans are making these choices, and they're continuing to want to honor individuals who produce a new book that's really good and giving them another nomination. So that's a factor that kind of has to be considered. And so you don't want to be. I mean, yeah, like recusing is I think a really good strategy for people getting too many wins, frankly. I just think in some spaces it's even more important. Like when there's just so much material in a space, like it's actually not healthy if you're the only one in the space. It's actually better to have it all kind of spread out. I mean, I think like short fiction in particular is one where we've just seen how difficult it is to find audiences for short mag stuff online, and so we keep seeing them come and go, which is really sad. And it'd just kind of be nice if there was a way that, not necessarily related to the award per se, but like bringing more attention to all of those and sort of all of the mags kind of talking together and like self-marketing one another so we could get more eyeballs on short fiction. I don't know. That I'm speaking idealistically. I would just like it if millions of people read speculative fiction in short form. The same number that vote in the Goodreads Choice Awards, by the way. 5.7 million votes were cast in last year.
A lot of the best stuff is there in the short fiction, not in the Goodreads.
Goodreads is very, very populist, and so their choices are reflection of the market, really.
Is there anything else we want to say about the Hugos, or are we going to move on?
I think we can scooch unless there's anything really good. I mean, overall, it's a really good ballot. There's a lot of cool stuff on here. Mm-hmm. It's just maybe a little top-heavy.
Good movies.
In certain respect. The movie choices, I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once is on there, which I hear is good, but I haven't seen.
You've still not seen it, Sean. Sean.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do realize Time is the Fire in Which We Burn, which I found out recently is actually from a poem, not just from a Star Trek movie. Thanks to someone on this podcast for telling me that fact. Mm-hmm. But yes.
Well, here
I think you'd like it, Sean.
Here's what I will say: if someone's listening to this and you are or would like to be a Patreon supporter, if we get the Patreon up to $100 a month, however many people is required, I will host a live watch where I watch that and people can come hang out with me while I watch the movie for the first time. How about that? It's a good incentive. Make me watch the movie you all think I have to watch. Mm-hmm. Do it.
That can be a feature.
Wouldn't take that much money, by the way. Literally one person could do it right now with like $36. So Just saying.
Unlikely, but possible.
Money bags, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Where's Moneybags McGee? Where's my Scrooge McDuck when I need him? Never mind. He wouldn't give money. He would just dive his ass into a pile of gold and kill himself, because that's exactly what would happen if you dive face first into gold.
Speaking of money bags, strikes.
Oh, the strikes. Yeah. So
Nice segue.
a lot has happened. Obviously, by now, everybody should know that SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild of America have both gone on strike. Not at the same exact time, but they're now on strike together. The only thing I will say is that the latest news that I had heard was that the Writers Guild had initially agreed to resume contract negotiations on August 10th, I think it was, and went into a conversation that didn't go exactly to plan because the studios weren't willing to have conversations about all of the items on their request list. I'm not saying demand list, because demand makes it seem ridiculous. So right now they are not meeting with the studios until the studios agree that a conversation will happen. And that's the last that I've heard. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts, but that's where we are, at least with the Writers Guild portion of it. So the strike continues. They are on pause because of the hurricane, though. In case you didn't know.
A hurricane is headed towards Southern California, Daniel. It's going to bring inches of rain to California and the desert, which is years worth of rain in one storm.
Which will be quite devastating. It'll be a tropical storm most likely by the time it actually hits California, but earlier today it was listed as a Category 4, which is pretty strong. California has not been hit by a hurricane in 84 years, I think. So
it is a very, very, very rare event. Once upon a time, when the world was young, I wrote a short story about two people trapped in a phone booth in San Diego during a hurricane. Well, because I pointed out in the story that this should not be happening.
Yeah.
So reality is caught up to my fiction.
Remember where you and I both have been through a hurricane or two. Well, to be fair, you've been through actual hurricanes. I've been through one hurricane. The other became a tropical storm. But yeah. But in any case, does anyone have any thoughts on the strike, at least where it is right now, hurricanes aside?
Support writers and actors. I will say that I recently rewatched a movie about actors being replaced with digital versions of themselves, which I'm going to write a review for the Skiffy and Fanty blog.
Yay!
Cool.
That'll be interesting.
That movie came out in 2013, so that movie feels really prescient now. Surprise!
Well, maybe as TV now won't have new shows or new episodes, and they're going back to filling the time slot with reruns and reality TV, everyone can turn to reading speculative short fiction.
I have. There are a ton of shows that I've been meaning to watch and haven't gotten around to. So even if I didn't want to read, there's tons of stuff out there, and the people who are complaining about the show writers, being greedy or whatever, man, wake up and smell the coffee and find some other things to do besides complaining. There's so much out there to read. We're drowning and to watch. In it. Yeah, it's.
Well, the amount that they're asking for, if they just cut the top level pay by a fairly modest amount, they'd more than cover what's being asked for.
Yeah.
So it's extra levels of ridiculous, which is why the strike's kind of necessary. Because I'm sure all of those executives at the top are just getting angry messages from all of their shareholders who are going, "Hey, I'm not going to get some money soon. What's the deal?" And shareholders generally can get mean. So, especially when millions of dollars are on the line.
Money talks.
And streaming is a huge part of this, right? Because of the issue of residuals in particular. We the joke that we make all the time about the show Friends is if you go to anywhere in the world, Friends is on TV somewhere. Because it's one of the most widely distributed American sitcoms ever. If you're in England, there's definitely a channel with Friends on reruns all day somewhere. You can see it anytime. Law and Order would be another one, possibly. But every single time they air those on television, any actor whose contract had residuals in it, they're getting some sort of cut, a piece of that pie. It may not be very much, but it adds up. But with streaming services, like, a lot of times they don't have to pay residuals at all. So all these
because
actors,
it wasn't in the original contracts. Right?
Precisely, yeah. The actors who should be getting something for a rerun won't get it. The writers definitely don't get it because they're getting extra screwed. And it's sort of like, this is not very fair. Like, if someone was sharing, like, an actor, they weren't a big actor, I can't remember who they were, but they were someone that I had seen in some stuff, and they were like, here, I was in this big show, I had, like, a role in 13 episodes, I made 18 cents or some, in a bananas amount, despite the fact it was a show that was, like, running on one of those major cable networks, just, like, on repeat. It's like, how does that make sense? How does he get, like, 18 cents for that? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So.
Well, Hollywood has a long tradition of creative accounting, and, you see a lot of stories about people who were involved in very famous money-making movies that haven't seen a dime because somehow things get leveraged and displaced so that, a Hollywood blockbuster does not count as a profitable movie. One of the issues, of course, that the strikers are talking about is AI, as you mentioned, and I'll just segue over to a little mention about Glasgow, the 2024 Worldcon. They have put out a policy about banning AI use in artwork. They are giving more than a year's notice to people that, we don't want you submitting stuff that was created, with the use of scrapey AI. And they don't even want they say that any dealers who have AI merchandise, based merchandise, that's going to be weighed against them in applications. And I think it's good they're taking a strong stance. Your camera phone uses some kind of machine learning stuff for its editing, automatic editing, and that's how camera phones get to be so good these days, is that they are using some machine learning and stuff. But that's different from stealing actual artist content and using it to program your profit machine.
Right. So, yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a good thing that they, I don't know if it's a perfect policy. I certainly have seen some arguments against the way they're doing it, but I think it's great that they are, thinking ahead and taking a stance on it. So, go Glasgow.
I do want to bring up in chat, because AI obviously is a big part of the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike, and it's a part of a lot of what's going on culturally, but, like, remember where he was asking, aside from art, like, what else can you make with AI? And this is kind of the problem. While AI can't legitimately replace everybody yet, the AI writing kind of sucks. AI video making, it's fun, it's neat, but you can tell it's not real.
And it's unethical. It's not creating anything out of whole cloth. It's remixing copyrighted works from other people, be it text or pictures, and presenting it as its own without the consent or desire of the original artists.
They can make a virus.
Configuration Queen points out in chat that AI or super machine learning or whatever, it's not really AI. Machine assisted learning or whatever the real proper term for it should be, can easily be used and has been used for deepfaking audio of things that people never actually said, deepfaking video for political tricks. We've already seen.
It's being used for pornography as well in very, very, very unacceptable ways.
Right. So there are a whole host of issues that need to be considered.
But the concern is, because these technologies exist that can do all these things, maybe not very well, if we don't fight them now, we're basically ceding the territory to have a fight when you have less ground to stand on. Because once this is the thing happening in my realm, which is education, where tons of universities are now creating policies where it's like, well, you can use it a little bit. Like 15% of your essay can be generated with AI. And I'm like, that's bonkers. Because what you're doing is you're saying that you're allowing a percentage of any work a student produces to not be their own work, which is academic dishonesty.
And also, just letting that foot under the door makes it much, much harder to have any kind of coherent, enforceable policy against it, if you will allow it at all.
Right. How do you tell what something 15% versus 100% is
Exactly.
AI
Well,
generated?
this is why they're doing it, because all the AI detectors that exist for writing are really ineffective and inefficient. Like Turnitin, which is one of the major programs. I'm sure, Daniel, you've heard of it. Turnitin is one of the major programs for detecting plagiarism. It has now an AI detector, but no AI detector is anywhere approaching 100% accuracy. So there is a very real fact, which is students are presently using artificial generative intelligence stuffs, whatever we want to call them. They are already using them, whether we want them to or not. So because we have no easy way to detect them, some people are saying, well, let's just like seed some ground, because maybe we'll still get them to do the 85% on their own.
No.
And I'm not convinced that's the case, because the big problem with all these technologies is we're just talking about using them. We're not talking about the actual ethical use of them. And I'm not talking specific in the way you mean, Paul, which is how they get the data, which, is a whole can of worms that we also have to talk about. But also, like, how do you actually use any kind of AI tool that's affecting the quality of your writing or your art or whatever you're doing in an effective and critical way that isn't just simply plugging some stuff in, copying and pasting, and using it? These aren't the conversations the universities with AI policies like this are having, partly because they don't want to.
I've also seen some articles about the opposite problem, where AI colleges using AI detectors are falsely accusing people of using AI when it's because they are English as a second language or other non-standard English writers, and they get falsely pinged as having using AI when they're just not using completely standard grammar or whatever, or slightly unusual vocabulary. Trent using a Spanish construction of a sentence in English, and that gets pinged as wrong.
All of the writers and SAG-AFTRA, for different reasons, don't want these tools to replace them. I mean, we already know with SAG-AFTRA, like, one of the things that came out of that was the idea that some lower level actors, like, background actors, maybe people with like a line or two, not really big voices, but smaller, were being asked in their contracts to basically sign away their likenesses in perpetuity for the use of AI, which means, like, they never have to hire that person ever again. Once AI gets good enough that you can just put that person in the background, why would they ever need to hire them? They don't need to see and speak.
You hire an extra once, and they are told to go report to a body scan. This has actually happened. People are told to go report to a body scan blue screen place, and they turn this way, turn that way, look surprised, look angry, and then they're recorded forever.
So it's like a stock Wilhelm scream.
Yeah.
But the stock Wilhelm, like, shock face.
I think if Wilhelm's scream shows up, I think whoever owns the rights to that gets a cut. So with this,
and it's not Wilhelm.
It's not Wilhelm. Probably not. No, which is unfortunate. But yeah, there is that. But yeah. So like, if you sign this away, like, I mean, maybe the big people, they have enough power to say, hey, but I get a cut, right? If you're gonna make, like, Bandersnatch Cumberbatch, whatever his name is. Sorry, Bandersnatch Cumberbuns. Bandersnatch Cumberbuns. Yeah. Like, he could probably negotiate a contract that says I get some cut for this, right? Because he's a big name. I mean, if he walked from a studio, another studio would happily have Bandersnatch Cumberbuns do his movies, right? But a small person, what leverage do they have? This is why the whole union has to go on strike. Everyone, big and small, has to be on the same side. Because otherwise, only people who can ever fight are just the people who are big now. There will be no big people after.
Right. Well, shall we move on to the next topic?
Yes, but I will just say the writers and the actors are going to win. So, suck it, studios.
One hopes, anyway.
No, they will. They'll win. They'll hold out. They'll just hold out,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah,
already
If they
hemorrhaging
don't
money.
hold out, there is no more career. There is no more middle class acting career or
That's
screenwriting
true.
career or anything. If they don't hold out against this, nobody has a career in it anymore.
Well, okay, the last thing is also not necessarily good, which is I called it Simon's Schuster, but really Simon and Schuster, for folks that didn't know, was sold to a private equity firm called KKR for $1.62 billion.
By
So
Paramount.
Paramount Global was sold it. Yeah, did the selling. So yeah, so Simon's Schuster is now owned by a private equity firm.
That also bankrupted Toys R Us,
Yeah,
among others.
among others, but Toys R Us is their biggest, roadkill, shall we say?
This
So-
made me sad, well, for many reasons, but one is just how much for a long time I've loved Star Trek novels, and I've been saddened by the infrequency of Star Trek novel writing under Paramount's leadership, or at least their current leadership, and the almost exclusive just doing like Discovery and Picard, which was a cesspool. But anyway, that this leaves that whole future completely unknown of what Paramount will do with that.
Oh, now you get to find out what is KKR going to do with it.
Well, yeah. Well, it's unclear to me. Will KKR have the rights to Paramount's properties then that they publish novels under, or does Paramount still have those to try to farm out elsewhere? That's unclear to me.
That is a great question. I mean, I think the only people that know are them.
Right.
I don't
I
think
mean,
that
there's.
information's
I
come
tried
out.
to look it up, but there's silence among like Star Trek writers and things
Yeah.
like that
Mm.
of what this means, because I don't think they even know.
It may be like lost in like a mountain of paperwork. Or it's one of those things where like I'm sure even with Paramount and Simon and Schuster, like there was a contract like of a certain number of years that particular division would do it. That maybe that when that contract's out, then KKR has to renegotiate. I don't know. Who knows? Or maybe it'll be like Spider-Man and Sony, where where Global will let them make it, but Paramount makes all the money on it.
Oh dear Lord!
I don't know. Yeah, it's alarming. This was after there was an effort to block because wasn't Penguin was going
Yeah,
to
it was
buy it
originally
first.
Penguin Random House, but the government blocked it because of antitrust or monopoly.
Antitrust, yeah.
Yeah, so
Which, I mean-
instead it gets sold to a vampire that's going to
Yeah.
suck it dry and throw the corpse on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this is frying pan to the fire.
Yeah.
This reminds me of there was an article on Barnes and Noble because Barnes and Noble's had a bit of a revival. It was dying. I mean, I
They
don't...
keep saying they're having a revival.
Yeah.
No. Okay,
yeah.
hold the fort. Hold the fort. So it used to be when I would go to a Barnes and Noble, like, so few years after they released the Nook, right, and they were trying to compete with Amazon, and they thought they would really do it on the ebook thing. Okay, right. You would go to a Barnes and Noble, and like there'd be almost nobody there. There'd be like 5 or 6 people in a pretty large Barnes and Noble wandering around. But I'd never been to a Barnes and Noble where it was like, well, I can't go down that aisle right now because there's too many people and I'm claustrophobic, so leave me alone. But one of the things that they have been doing, and I've actually witnessed this by going to multiple Barnes and Nobles in Minnesota, is they basically gave the individual stores more control over the content that they keep. So yeah, there's obviously like they have to sell the big stuff because they still have to make a profit. But like they let the actual local people that work there have more control over what books they highlight, what kinds of weird stuff they might bring in, because those people actually know who their local book people are who come into the Barnes & Noble and buy, like what kind of stuff they're interested in. So there's Barnes & Nobles you'll go to where they might have a huge lit crit section, like massive, like 3 or 4 shelves worth, right, of just all this literary criticism. And that's because a huge portion of their clients are like college students and grad students, and you know they like are by a couple of different universities. You go to others that have like really large children's book sections because they do big events for kids. So this is a thing I've been seeing, that every Barnes and Noble I've gone to now actually feels like a legitimate bookstore. It's not just DVDs and like, you know, weird Charizards and all these kinds of things. It's like books and lots of cool books, and come find the cool books. The books are sexy, and there's a cafe over there that you can get some coffee from, and you can read your books. Do it. Read the books. Even the one in the Mall of America.
You can get a book for like $5 if you buy the coffee. Like that's being featured. They often do that as well.
Yeah, they will do that as well. You can get discounts. So like BNN, I mean, look, I don't know what their numbers actually look like in terms of profit. So maybe they're not doing super great, but almost all of the information that's coming out of BNN is that they were on the downward trajectory to that BNN is probably going to collapse. And now the trajectory seems to be the opposite direction.
Yeah, Configuration Queen points out in the chat that Barnes & Noble has done a huge turnaround since they got the Waterstones CEO, which is a chain of bookstores in the UK, who apparently has been doing a lot of positive things to help turn it around.
Okay.
I mean, if you make a bookstore about book people and you try to sell books to book people, you're more likely to sell books.
Funny how that works.
Particularly when there's nothing else in town selling books.
So last thing before we go, this is a reminder to everybody. There is now a listener survey that's up. Listener and reader survey. That is our 2023 listener reader survey. If you go to skiffyandfanty.com/survey, you will get there. There's a link that takes you to the Google page, but I've also embedded it there so you can see it. It's also now in the chat for folks who are live with us. If you're a listener to the show, or you are a former reader of the blog, or a current reader because we've started up the blog again, we would love your feedback. Let us know. Basically anything in there that you can provide some feedback on, we would love it a lot.
We're looking for Goodreads Choice Award level of like feedback here, like the millions of listeners.
I gotta be honest.
I will be disappointed if we do not reach, to at least battle Goodreads.
Actually, that is Sean just mentioned some good news that we should definitely talk about, which is that the Skiffy and Fanty website has started posting book reviews again as of this August. We're shooting for 2 reviews a week with crew. Daniel is doing a great job of getting this organized and off the ground, and
you, Trish, you're an integral part of
and
this.
And you, Trish.
Yeah, the editing.
Okay, so that is the episode. A reminder for folks, if you would like to suggest topics for a Clacks or Speculative Dispatch, skiffyfanty.com/listener suggestions. Please throw stuff up there. We are on all the social media sites that matter. You can find all links to that and our other things at linktree/skiffyandfanty. That's linktr.ee/skiffyandfanty. And then we do have a newsletter, which is skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter. Naturally, we also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. We need all the money. And if you've never reviewed our show on iTunes, Podchaser, Good Pods, or any of those places, what the hell? You're here right now. When this is done, go do that, please.
Well, where can listeners find you, Sean?
I'm lots of places. SeanDuke.net. I'm Alphabet Streams on Twitch, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Patreon.com/TheJoyFactory. And then I also have a link tree, which is just /Sean Duke for that. And I do the histories at SeanDuke.net/thehistories.
You can find me, Paul Weimer, Prince Justin on Twitter still. They haven't kicked me off yet. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/PrinceJustin. And I'm on many blogs and podcasts, including Tor.com, Nerds of the Feather. I mod for Arvin Elleron. I am all over the place on the internet. Throw a rock and you'll find me. And one day I will stream on my own one day. I'm Prince Justin on Twitch. One day.
You can find me at reading1000lives.com. That's 1000 as in 1000. And I'm also at Reading 1000 Lives on Blue Sky. And I also contribute reviews to Fantasy Book Critic.
You can find me, Trish Matson, on Blue Sky at PE Matson, on Mastodon, newsy.social at TrishEM. I still have an account on Twitter, but I don't scroll there anymore. I guess I'll get a notification if anyone wants to reach me at PE Matson. And I have a blog that I update occasionally at www.whatsthewordnow.blogspot.com.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to end this podcast by saying something that mostly Paul will understand and almost nobody else will, but it's actually an announcement in a foreign language that most of you don't really speak. But I'm going to announce it here now for everybody. So, meow. Meow,
Okay.
meow, 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 meow.
Stay frosty, listeners. Stay frosty.
And on that note, awkward ending and scene. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.